These needs come with the different stages of our homes. When I have my wife at 0 years, we are 2. So the needs are basically me and her. Finished. God blesses us with the twins. They multiply. They are girls or boys. They become teenagers. And they become big people who are campusers. All these are different facets which bring either stress to the family, and above all, I want to mention, biblically, the breadwinner. Biblically, and I hope the men are still taking that position that they are the breadwinners. As a man, it means you must lead your cabinet, one, to discuss what are the family needs. Let's begin with physiological. Let's go to other needs, which could be tertiary or secondary. But they differ with gender. My needs, my hair can take 10,000 a week. Finished. In a month, I need 40,000. On my head, for 30 minutes. My wife may need, how many times that one? A minimum of 50,000 per week. And if you have 3 women in your house, they are not your wives, but they are other household members. What does it mean? A family must define their needs for today, for tomorrow, and the anticipated needs, such that you plan accordingly. For example, when I got my wife, we planned that I will go back to school, and she will also go back to school. Did you discuss that? Say that our means and savings are tailored towards the needs. So why we fail to live within our means is because we don't know our needs. My wife does not share with me. I don't share with her. We don't share with our children. We don't share with our teenagers. We don't share with our mates and everyone around us. So therefore, there is what we call expanded demand. She has a lot of insatiable needs on her list, not discussed in the cabinet. It's not on the cabinet order list. Then I have mine and my brother and the children. There it is very hard to live within your means because you don't know your needs. Once you appreciate your needs, you debate prioritization. What are the must? Food, shelter, housing, power, and all the rest. Education, medical care. How about other needs? We need an outing, maybe once a quarter, because it's part of our quality relationship, as far as we are concerned. Maybe we need these children to go to this kind of schools. And it's a decision. You can't wake up and say they should go in this school. No. Discuss and know how much do you afford that school fees. Can you? Is it your means? Now, what's the danger? I'll come to that. Why are men dying younger? My doctor here will now, he knows that demographically. Part of the reasons why men die younger is the financial stress driven by lack of defining our needs, living within our means. You are not dying today, at least by God's grace. I'm not dying now by that. The things we need to appreciate is that as a home, we come together. Discussion is good. Gone are the days when you say you can discuss, the other say alone. What demands? And one source or two sources. I don't know whether communication.
Okay.
Let's be consistent. So I want to finalize by saying this, Sam, that we need to reach a point the way we come for prayer. On the altar to pray, we need to have an altar of discussing financial matters. The way we discuss any other spiritual issue is the same way. Failure to do that is the beginning of what we call a financial crisis in a home. The wife starts thinking that you are not a man enough to provide. Why? Because the needs are not well defined and identified by you all. The man also thinks this woman is a demanding woman. Her role is, the other side, we say they are consumers. She's a consumer. A consumer woman, not a development woman. Why? Need definition is lacking. I'll end with this. Assure me. A lady has her own list. I have my own list. Never discussed. But we have one pool. What happens? Whose priority prevails? This what even brings a crisis of managing relatives. You are doing things for your side, not my side. Let's discuss the sides here. And we can agree. Each month, each day, depending on your income. Daily, weekly, monthly, or annual. And then we portion it accordingly. What a means? Means is what you can afford, not what you desire. If I can afford only to eat a Rolex, I may desire to eat pizza. But I don't have the means. So let me eat my commando for today. But commando is not going to be written on me forever. Tomorrow I will go and eat omelette, a pizza, and another thing because my means have expanded. Now let me end with the young people. Okay. Why do we fail to live in our means? Competition. I want to be like a Sam. I don't know his income. I don't know his needs. I don't know his everything. I don't know about it. But I want to be like a Sam. My Sam. I'm Nicholas. With my needs, my family, my potentials, my means. Learn to live who you are and be contented for now as you aspire for better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. I got a couple of points. I'm sure people also got points, several. But I just want to highlight two of these. That you need to understand what your needs are. You need to understand what is available to you as resources, but also have a conversation within your household so that you can you can collaboratively as a household live within the means that are available to you, whilst at the same time enjoying life. And Stephen, this is something that I would like you to sort of highlight a bit more. How do you set goals? How do you set targets that assist you to utilize the resources that are available to you in a meaningful way, whilst being good stewards, minimizing stress?
Thank you.
Are you able to hear?
Hello?
You're
Hope I'm
able to
audible
hear.
now.
Excellent. Okay, we are competing with the rain, but I hope that you're able to hear.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elder. I think my brother, my elder, Nicholas, has brought it out very well that one of the aspects we need to first look at is the need to sit down together and converse together and come up with what to handle. My task is how do you come out with goals, both of you, that are acceptable. I think one biggest aspect is both of you first agreeing that we have one pool, we have one planning aspect. And then as a family, you agree on which targets, which goals do you want to achieve within a specific time period. It may be a year, it may be quarterly. What do you want to achieve? And you list down what you want to achieve. When you come up with that list, I think you begin prioritizing of this that we have. What is our expected income within the given time period? And with this period that we are expecting, what can we handle? You may have a list that has an example of a house you want to build. There is tuition, which is demanding. There is education, as we said. But there are some needs which don't require waiting, like hair, like clothing, and other aspects. So sometimes you may have to divide your goals into groups. What are goals that are to be handled long term, and what are their sources of income, how to finance them? And what items we talk about variable costs, things like food, like hair, and other items. And out of that, you can see how to prioritize your list. Maybe one thing I would like to add on is that this planning and targeting we are talking about shouldn't be between man and woman. If you have children, they may be as young as 5 years, but it's what they can understand. Please make them part of their targets to understand how things operate in a home. I'm one of the people who benefited a lot from my mother and my father. There are people that used to sit down, set targets, plan together, and they would involve us. And out of that, as children, we learned that even if we were in boarding school, we are studying, we had set targets on which to operate on. Even when we joined the marriage institution, it was upon us to know that planning as a couple, planning as a family is very key and very essential. I think the biggest thing is coming up with a list, with a priority list you want to achieve within a given period of time, and then see what is long term and what's variable. You can work in within a short period. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Stephen. There are words that have recurred in what you have said: planning, prioritization, discussion. And I like that you mentioned that you also include not just you and your wife in the discussions, also include other family members or key stakeholders who are your children. The children may see the neighbors' children accessing certain privileges and wonder what is happening in your own household. They say, but the children of Sesanga are putting on a new pair of shoes. I also want something like that. So a discussion with all your key stakeholders is important. But in setting targets, there's planning, there's prioritization, and discussion. Nicholas, you seem to have wanted to add something on that.
I just remember two things. And they emphasize living within your means and discussion. One is when I was still single. Another one when I was single. My first job at Makerere, I spent 9 months without pay. 9. I was renting. So one of my friends came and saw my cousin go where I was renting. I said, "Yo man, go and rent the other side." I said, "Wait a minute. This is what I can afford now. Personally, without another person's support." So this man was on my head and stressing me as a friend. Why can't you leave and go and rent somewhere else? Has the job started giving you money yet? No. Do I live within my means to borrow for unexpected income, which has not yet come to my pockets? No. Expected income can be frustrating. Assuming I had borrowed in 9 months, no pay. How would I be paying interest? I know Sesanga is looking at me. The second one, when we got married, this happens to everyone. I don't know, especially young people. Where are we going to stay? I was staying in my rooms, and then Eve said, "Where are we going to stay?" I said, "Are you happy with these rooms, in this environment, in Chikoni?" And that's where I was as a student before. Now we have graduated to simply double room. What next? She looked at me, she believed in me, and we suggested this. Let's be here 1 year. After here, we go in our home. Are you sure? Said yes. It was not 1 year. 6 months we went to our home.
Amen.
Living within your means takes not pride, not arrogance, but what you believe you are. Ugandans and Africans will live for others, to see us, to have the pomp and the status. Those don't work in your finances. When they will be confiscating your property, will your status be not tampered with? So I praise God. She believed in me. Indeed, we shifted, and no landlord for at least the first 6 months. We rented and we moved on.
Thanks very much, Nicholas. You've touched a very important point, which I'm which I'm going to actually ask you, Rogers, to talk about. which is indebtedness. It's great that you were humble enough to live. Actually, I wondered all the time when we used to see you as an important person working in Makerere, you were sleeping in rather dishonorable circumstances. Thank you for that patience. It's a good example. And thank you for sharing that experience. But for others, when you feel that you have moved in a certain way socially, you also want to move in a certain way financially, even though your social movement is not consistent with your financial movement. So the way some people do that is through borrowing. But we also have other reasons that are honorable reasons for borrowing, because as we know, borrowing sometimes is inevitable. Rogers, please give us a primer. When do we borrow? Why should we borrow? What are the kinds of things that we should borrow money for?
Thank you so much. Maybe before I go that side, I wanted to ask my colleague Nicholas, how do we differentiate in a home our needs and our wants as a family? Because to me as the husband, it could be a need, and my wife has a want. How do we differentiate the two to make sure that we harmonize as a family?
One of the hardest debates in any marriage or family is the needs of women and men and children. Now, this debate also is true in our family, because somewhere you reach a point and you say, must we have this for now? It's good to have, but not a must. A must have is that I cannot live without food. I can live with one shirt, even for a month. And I don't care what you say about my shirt, but you cannot live without food. Once you come to a point where you realize what are the needs, a need is a must, it's an essential, you cannot live without. A want is I might want to have 3 suits and I change every Sabbath. I might want to, those are things, they are good to have, but they are not a must. Caution. These change with the stage, with the years, with the changing dynamics of your family in terms of size, in terms of status, as Elder said. Sometimes our needs, there is a very thin line between needs and wants. For example, a new job, but you don't have money to have that new hairstyle as a lady, and a new look, and a new suit, and a new dress. But for work, if you must put on money for work, is it a need to change the hairstyle and the dress, or it is a want? New appointment, new job, new look, you are reporting the first day on Monday, and you need to see first impression matters. Is it a need or a want to go to the salon? You don't have the means yet. Should I borrow to go and do my salon 100,000, 150, and that dress and suit? Or I can recycle those I have and my natural Mama Janet style, and then I go to my workplace. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You've been so elaborative. And I want to give an example. One, I pray and request that as a family, we should live within our means. It is very important. Recently, I saw a WhatsApp of a family that went to a supermarket to buy probably some groceries. And the man was the one carrying the trolley, and the wife was the one choosing the items. So I'm thinking that before they left home, or before they met, they didn't discuss on what to get from the supermarket. what was the budget of the man. Unfortunately, in our setting, the Africa setting, we think that it is only men who are supposed to clear bills. So this is what happened. The lady was so happy to be in the supermarket, and the appetite was so high. She would go to the area where she needs some items, and she would pick about 6 and bring them in the trolley. And as she goes back to pick the others, the man would pick the 4 and put them back. So that means there was a disorganization in the family. Back to your point. Debt. Of the view that as a family, we should, as much as possible, avoid debt or avoid borrowing. As Elder Nicholas said, and other members are saying, let us live within our means. Especially if we are going to borrow for consumables. There are things that you're going to buy which are going to be consumed. Even the Bible itself talks about borrowing. If we can open Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7. Anyone with the Bible? Proverbs 22 verse 7. It says if you borrow, you become a servant to the lender. So as a family, we should, most cases, live within our means. Secondly, if we have to borrow, then let's borrow for assets. For example, if you want to buy land, you sit down and probably strategize and discuss, and then you buy land through borrowing. But in addition to that, I want to say, when you borrow, please make sure you pay back. I've seen people running away from their lenders. We are Christians. Let's be cautious enough. When you borrow, please pay back. And currently there is technology. I don't know whether many of us know what is called CRB. It's called the Credit Reference Bureau. If you borrow in the formal sector, not the word formal sector, you must have all your fingerprints captured because you're going to borrow. And this information, for your information, is shared amongst all financial institutions. So what happens if you borrowed in bank X and you didn't pay? You can take 10 years and you go to borrow into bank Y. Unfortunately, the history will be following you. So when we borrow, please, let's pay back. Thirdly, I want to close by saying, let us avoid borrowing in the informal sector. What do I mean by the informal sector? In town they call it, give me a rabbit, I'll give you a cow. In other words, you borrow 2 million at an interest rate of 20% per day, which is actually not practical. At the end of the day, as you're going to borrow, you write an agreement with this informal lender that I've sold my car. You are borrowing 1 million, but you're putting it in writing that I've sold my car for 1 million shillings, just because this gentleman or this company or this lady is going to borrow you 1 million shillings. And you know what happens? In between there, Satan comes in. And you fail to get the 1 million. And what happens? this informal lender will actually take your car, will actually take your land, will actually take your property. So, I'm saying, as Christians, as families, let us avoid borrowing as much as possible. Let us live within our means. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to sort of recap our discussions up to this point. The first one, which Nicholas, you covered so ably, is that to the extent possible, let's live within our means. Obviously, for you to live within your means, you need to have means in the first place. Isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
You need to have means. And so somewhere along our discussion this afternoon, I want you men to also mention how do we have means? Because that is an important element of financial management. If you don't have means, there is even no means to live within. Okay? The second point that Stephen, you so ably highlighted, in order to do that, we need to set our goals, we need to prioritize, we need to plan, we need to have discussions within our home settings with our appropriate stakeholders to make sure that, you know, we are setting goals that speak to our abilities. Sometimes we find that we need to borrow. And, you know, Rogers, who didn't mention that he thrives on borrowing, on lending money. He's a banker. So, you know, he's a man who lends money to others, but he's telling us, be careful. Be careful, and he also didn't set a disclaimer, don't borrow from the informal sector. Those are to pay back. When we borrow, we should do